I wanted to share with you what I think is the absolute best way to feed bees. I've tried them all, like probably most of you guys have, and I found big negatives on almost everything that most people are using. I've tried them and found, okay, there's problems with this. But I finally come up to a type of method of feeding that seems to address all those issues. The feeder that I think most of us start out with, and I think it's because mostly they're included in beginners kits, is the entrance feeder, where there is a jar, upside down jar, somewhere in your entrance, and this is what I think is probably the worst feeder of all, because it has lots of problems. You're right there in the front of the hive, so anytime you want to change the feed out, you're dealing with guard beads right here. You've also got sugar syrup right here where the robbers are trying to get in, and they can smell that sugar syrup, so your bees are constantly having to defend against bees, robber bees trying to get in to get at that sugar syrup. They can smell it in there. And so entrance feeders, then you have to smoke them, you have to deal with the guard bees. It's always a problem to try to change out the feeder. So that I ditched that quite a while ago. The other method of feeding that's very popular is internal feeders, where you have a pool of nectar somewhere in the hive with some sort of receptacle. One standard one is kind of a frame, empty frame, plastic receptacle. It has and you pour feed in, and then pretty much every pool of nectar feeder inside the hive that I've encountered has a bee drowning problem, because if the bee can get to it, they can drown in it. That I've found is a big negative. The other thing is I have to then smoke the hive, I have to take off the cover. I can't find out if the feed is needing to be replaced or if they need more feed without actually breaking into the hive and disturbing the bees and me having to get in a bee suit and smoke and all that. So that seems to be also too many negatives on that. Another method that I've tried is, okay, this avoids the bee drowning problem and having to break into the hive and having bee problems right in your entrance like an entrance feeder, is let's just feed away from the hive. So I've gotten the 5-gallon buckets, drill all the little holes where you go take them out to some area away from your bee yard because you don't want to start the robbing. You turn the bucket upside down and you free feed them out in the open. Well, there's all kinds of problems with that, I found. First off, those are heavy buckets. And then once you get them out to the bee yard, you've got to turn them upside down. And until the vacuum gets there, they're leaking like crazy. So there's sticky sugar syrup going everywhere. And you're feeding every bee in the community. It's not just my bees, it's anybody else's bees that find that. And believe me, they'll find your feeder over there, and you're feeding your neighbors and wild bees and every yellow jackets and wasps and anything else that decides they want some sugar syrup. So I found that to be unacceptable. I have certain hives I really want to make sure they're getting fed, and I'm not sure if they're being muscled out by the stronger hives at the open feeders. So I decided that isn't what I want to do. So I feel that the best feeder would be one where I don't have to break into the hive. I can actually see from the outside whether they need more feed, and they aren't drowning, and I'm not having to deal with guard bees. In fact, I don't have to deal with the bees at all. And what I found was if you take a solid lid, so you can't use telescoping lids. Personally, I don't care for telescoping lids anyway. It's two pieces of equipment where you really just need one. And so you drill a 3-inch, get a hole saw at Harbor Freight for a few bucks, drill a 3-inch hole in your center of your lid, and on top of the cover there, you put an 1/8-inch hardware cloth. This will keep the bees from being able to get out, but they can drink through this. And then you get a half-inch piece of plywood, and you drill another 3-inch hole through that. And so you put your hardware cloth over your hole on your lid, you put this over the hole, over the screen there, and so what you end up with is a screened area that they can get up into, and it's hollow underneath because of the width of the depth of the lid under there, and they can suck the syrup. And then you can get a half-gallon ball jar, so this will hold a lot of syrup. And you take the lid, which is typically concave because that's the way these canning lids are, and you need to beat it out flat, which is easy to do obviously with a hammer, and that way when the lid sits flat on the screen the bees can actually get at the holes. And the holes, I put quite a few holes, as you can see in there. I use frame nails. They're small enough to where you have the you know, they don't leak or any of that kind of thing. They hold with the suction from the syrup, you know, draining out of the bottom. And the other thing I would suggest here, and they're also easy to work with, because what you can do is you fill your jar up to a little more than half if you're feeding 1-to-1 like in the spring. Fill it up with sugar, and then just pour in some hot water, shake it up, let it shake for, you know, a minute or two, and it'll pretty much all dissolve at that point. And then when you go out to your bee yard, you come into the back of the hive, so you aren't dealing with the guard bees. And I don't even use a veil, even though my bees are kind of hot. But the bees don't even know I'm back there mostly. And then you take your empty off, you put your, the bees can't get out because they're up there, but they can't get out because of the hardware cloth. You put your new syrup on, and you're good. That's all it takes to feed your hives. And this way, you can actually look out across your bee yard and see if you need to be feeding. You can watch the sugar syrup going down and think, well, maybe tomorrow I'm probably going to have to get some more sugar. And you can also monitor the health of your hives, because a strong hive will have it regularly descending here, the sugar syrup level. And so you know if it's going down pretty fast, that your hive is healthy and it's strong and it's doing what you want. If there's a hive out there, and I've had this occasion, and this is my alert, if you look out there and it's not going down much, it's just going sinking and very slowly, you better go look at that hive. There's something up why they aren't as healthy and eating as much as the other hives. So this is a way for you just to go out in the morning with your coffee, look over at the bee yard, see if you need to feed, or if you've got a hive that might be needing to be looked at. I think this is absolutely the best way to feed, and I can't even imagine feeding any other way after I've gotten used to this. You don't have any bees drowning, you're feeding exactly, you know exactly what your hive is getting. You can monitor the health of your hives. You can know without having to open up the hive and deal with the bees whether you need to feed more, whether it's out or not. It just addresses all the problems. So I think once you start using this method, you won't go back to any other method of feeding. And then you of course take the plug that you get out with your hole saw, put that on a piece. I've got a piece of masonite here, and then you make a plug to go here. So when you're not feeding, you don't have a problem with rain getting into your hive. So anyway, that's just an idea that I had that I found works for me, and hopefully maybe this is an idea that might work for you too. Thank you.